is the number to get in touch with me this morning. You can also drop me a text the word Barks in your message to 81333. First though, raising children is a challenge at the best of times, isn't it? And it's even more so the case when you have to take on the role of both parents. Now, Harry Borden has photographed the likes of Ewan McGregor and Tony Blair, but his new book is all about single dads. We're going to hear from Harry in a few moments, but one of the dads featured in his book is Kevin, who was living in Finch Hampstead when he had to learn how to raise his children on his own, and he's with us this morning. Morning, Kevin.
Good morning.
Talk to me about the circumstances which led to you becoming a single parent, first of all.
My wife died in 2013, actually on Mother's Day, 2013 of all days.
Yeah.
And she had cancer. Her cancer was actually found in childbirth for my second son, my youngest son, and she went through a 5-year battle against it, really, but eventually, 5.5 years after it was first diagnosed, she succumbed to it. So that was sort of the circumstances. We knew for some time that she was going to die. Probably 2.5 to 3 years. We knew that that it was going to get her. Right. I think we probably knew from the start. Actually, something inherent. We just kind of knew, but the doctors didn't sort of formally tell us, I suppose, until 2 years before. They said there was nothing more that they could do apart from just treat the pain, and so we had a lot of time to prepare for it, I suppose, which is great, but it also creates different issues and different challenges.
Well, I mean, you say there's a lot of time to prepare for it, but it's difficult to know how you do prepare for it, and it's difficult to know how it makes it any easier at the time, because, so many of us enter single parenthood for so many different reasons. For you, you found yourself as the sole carer of your children amidst the most horrific time in your life, but you've still got to keep on going. How were you able to do that?
I think, when she was in the sort of final stages of her life was actually probably the hardest time for me, because I felt completely torn all the time. I wanted to be with her. I wanted to support her. I wanted to be next to her in the hospice when she was in the hospice.
Yeah.
But I also had, at the time, a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and 5 and 7 when she actually died, who needed me as well. And I just did not know which way to turn. It was the most horrific year of my life. There is no question. But you find a way. I mean, she was brilliant because she knew that the children needed me more than she did. Or I don't know, that's true. She knew I had to be with the children, but she needed me equally. But I think she made the choice that I had to devote as much time to them as I could, as well as her. And we had a huge amount of family support, as you can imagine. So we did everything we could to prepare them, and with the help of Daisy's Dream, who are the most amazing Berkshire-based charity, who helped us with all the messaging for all the schools and the childminders that the children went to, just to make sure that everyone was clear and consistent, and they used the same language that we use with the children. Because how do you tell your young children that their mum's going to die? I mean, it's the most horrendous conversation to ever think that you've got to have, and we had to have that conversation. But actually, the children realised it for themselves, even although they were really young. We never ever lied to them. When they asked us, we told them the truth, but we didn't tell them things they couldn't comprehend or couldn't understand. And because you can't say to a 5-year-old that their mother is going to die soon, because they don't understand the concept of what soon means for them. No, soon is tomorrow or the day after or the day after that.
Yeah.
Whereas, for us, soon was 3 months, 6 months, 9 months.
And when you're kind of plummeted into that role as a single parent, did it give you a kind of sense of purpose, if you like, when it would be very easy, wouldn't it, to become completely consumed by grief? Did it almost give you a lifeline in those really dark days?
Yeah, I think you just become completely devoted to looking after your children. And, I wasn't particularly worried. I tried not to be worried about myself, although I was I didn't feel great, not just from a grief point of view. I think my body I'd had so much adrenaline going through my body for such a long time that as soon as she actually died, I seemed to get sick with a lot of different things, because it's almost like my body almost relaxed a bit. But I focused all my attention on the children and gave them all the time and help that I could give them, and tried to stay normal for them, and not gibbering wreck on the side of the school playground, which would be easy to become, I guess. But you don't, because you have to be a strong person in that situation.
And just focusing on being a single dad for a moment,
Yeah.
and you're the dad of boys. Has it helped that you've got boys, do you think? And I say this, only because in my experience, the single dads that I know, it's been a very steep learning curve with girls. All of a sudden they've had to get used to doing, French plaits and goodness only knows what else.
No question.
All of that wasn't there for you, was it?
No question that was, I understood boys, and I think that was definitely much easier for me. I mean, I actually came across Harry because I'm on still am on a closed Facebook group for widowers.
Yeah.
Where there, when I joined it, there was 10 or 15 of us, and now there's a couple of hundred or 300 or so that are on this closed Facebook group. And Harry was doing some work with some of the other guys. But the reason I'm saying that is that I got to know a few dads who had young girls rather than young boys, and they exactly what you said. They had to learn haircuts and hairstyles and clothing. And I remember one guy just saying to me, well, I don't really know what to buy for the girls, so I just basically buy the next catalogue.
Just out of desperation, volume as opposed to...
Yeah, because I mean, there's something that you learn how to do really quickly, I'm sure, but boys definitely made it easier for me.
Yeah. Just describe your photograph in this book. We're going to talk to Harry in a moment, but describe your role in it.
Well, as I said, one of the guys on the Facebook group who originally set it up introduced us effectively online, and Harry came to our house. He had I'm not a photographer, so he had a very simple camera with him. He was just a very charming guy, and came into the home, and we walked. There was a park about 10 minutes walk from our house, and it was kind of early evening. And well, first of all, I think he got us to change, either me or one of the children. He wanted us to change one of our tops, so I guess we looked more appropriate for the photography. so we kind of did that without really changing who we were, but we did that, and we went down and to the park. It was California Country Park in Hampstead.
Yeah.
And I think it was just a really beautiful evening. The light was amazing for Harry. It was, the sun was starting to go down, and we just found some amazing spots for some photographs. And this picture of Ben and Toby and I is an interesting one. It captures a moment in our lives where it was us three, and it was sort of, sorry, I'm just going to get a little bit emotional, kind of us three against the world, I guess. Yeah. And I think the photo, it represents a moment in time. Now, it's not necessarily a photo that, you're kind of trained to smile when someone says, I'm going to take a photo and smile. Well, actually, Harry didn't really want us to do that. He wanted to capture us as we were at that point in time. So he kind of actively asked us almost not to smile, which is quite an unusual thing to do. And I think as a result, the photograph, it has a lot of depth to it, I think. So I know that Harry is quite fond of it. He's put it in for awards and stuff, and it's we've got a big copy of it on our wall, and as I said, it captures a moment in my life which I don't ever particularly want to go back to, but it's there, and it keeps everything forefront, which is good as well.
Yeah, I think anyone listening to this who finds themselves in a similar situation, regardless of the circumstances, becoming a single parent with children, will completely resonate with that sense of you and your children against the world. That is beautifully put and so very accurate. Thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about it this morning, Kevin. I'm sure Philippa will be very proud of you and the boys as well. That's Kevin from Finchampstead. It's 18 minutes past 10. We'll hear from the photographer behind this book, Harry, after the Fratellis. This is Need a Little Love on BBC Radio Berkshire. Love that. The Fratellis Need a Little Love on BBC Radio Berkshire. We're talking about a new book focusing on single dads this morning. Harry Borden has already photographed the likes of Ewan McGregor and Tony Blair, but this time he's focusing on single dads. We've just heard from Kevin, who was living in Finchampstead when he was part of the book, and his image is one of the standout images, I think. Let's have a word with Harry, the mastermind behind all of this now. What made you want to create this book in the first place then, Harry?
I got to the age of about sort of middle age, and I sort of had spent 20 years photographing the great and the good, and sort of, and it's sort of seductive doing these sort of portraits of famous people, but I kind of wanted to start doing projects that had more kind of meaning to me, and I was sort of personally invested in. And I did a book photographing Holocaust survivors because my dad was Jewish and an atheist. I grew up in Devon, so I never met any Jewish people. That was kind of an exploration of my identity. And then really in 2009 I became, I split up with my ex, and for me, it was all about the children, and I kind of went from sort of taking my situation for granted. I was complacent probably a bit in the relationship and too consumed with my work, and suddenly when I knew that we were going to be splitting up, I suddenly was there and kind of completely present when I was sort of reading to my children. And I mean, it was a jolt, and I kind of realized, that friends and family are all that really matters, and it sort of got me thinking about my role as a father. And it's nice to have sort of to do these jobs and have a career and make yourself materially comfortable, but ultimately it means nothing if you don't have a relationship with your children and you don't embrace your role as a father. And so that was a sort of seed that was planted. And then, as I said, in around a couple of years after that, I sort of decided to sort of embark on this project.
It was really interesting talking to Kevin there, and something that really resonated with me. I mean, I've been a single parent for 2 years now, and when he said, it's us three against the world, that's so powerful, isn't it? Because I remember when I first got divorced, a really close friend of mine gave me a photograph which still sits in my hallway actually, and it's the back. It's not a photograph, it's a drawing. The back of a mum with her arms around two children, and it just says "You are so loved" at the top of it. And I don't think it matters what your family circumstance, whether you've got close family on hand to help out. There is that sense, isn't there, of it being you and your closest against everybody else once it happens. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I just found this. I just remember, I think quite often when you're in a relationship, I remember other friends, they were going through crisis of breaking up with their partners, and I was probably quite judgmental because I just didn't think it could happen to me, and it's kind of so shocking. But for me, the biggest thing is you start to look at it through the perspective of your children, and so for me, the worst thing was for it to have a corrosive effect on them, or them it's sort of impacting on them later in life and about how they approach their relationships. And I mean, I kind of, in fact, it's sort of, I think that kind of idea has informed the way that, I'm now sort of best friends with my ex, and it's kind of a really lovely situation. And in a way, my oldest is 25, and she's sort of dating and stuff like that. And I think in a way, it presents a blueprint for your children to see that you can kind of survive these things, and these things are sent to try us, and we're all constantly changing, and it's very easy to become complacent and take these things for granted. And there's a gift in actually being in that emotionally raw state, because it forced me to sort of start to take on things that kind of were meaningful to me and enriched my life in a more deep and profound way than sort of just photographing David Beckham or whatever. As I was doing, you kind of coast along, you don't really question things. And so sometimes a catastrophe is an opportunity to sort of reassess.
Absolutely. Well, the photographs are absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for talking to us this morning. That's Harry Borden, whose latest book, Single Dad, is out now. Just gone 26 minutes past 10. I'll check